transition. There are others out there. Maybe that's not.
Transcript.
What?
Transcript, I think.
Transcript, right. Not transitions.
2 lines.
Thank you. Transcript.
2
2 lines. They do have editors. So the translation venues or outlets, whatever you call them online, that I'm thinking of, they are like publishing houses, only they don't print anything. But I'm just going to leave it there, so there are other.
Yeah, one of the things I'll just throw in is that the ebook. I think the ebook phenomenon is a good thing because it is very hard to get literary translations other than the sort of the major authors into bookstores, and ebook can be there for anyone who at least has an ebook reader or wants to read on the computer, and it keeps things available. And so I think that's a good thing for foreign literature. Not big numbers, but at least it's available and it remains available. And you also charge less because you don't have all that paper.
I will say, I know like there's this whole thing, and there's this website and publishing house 3% and open letter out of the University of Rochester, Czech-to-English, which is great. But I think I changed my opinion about, we have a fewer percentage of our books in this country are translation than in probably any other country in the world. But I don't think right now that we're suffering from a lack of translations. There is no way, I mean, from any given country, maybe, but there's no way I could possibly keep up with all the works in translation. So I think there's more available nowadays.
Yeah, there's more available, but from smaller presses. It's really what you sort of said.
I have a question.
Okay, I guess Suzanna has taken over the transmission of the microphone to try to get her attention if you have a question.
I would like to ask something. I've been thinking about translation for a long time, living between 2 languages. And what I'm really interested in is, it has been written that each translation creates a new text. And I'm very interested in the role of the translator. How does it complicate the idea of authorship? If you're actually rewriting somebody's work, what part of you do you leave within that text? That's what's really interesting to me. If I give each of you the same text, I would come back with 4 different translations, right? 4 different texts. So I'm interested in the idea of the author, and the process of translation is actually a process of writing. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I had a funny experience once when had just finished translating, I think, or was in the process of translating. No, I finished the translation of Letters to Olga, and I was writing an introduction to the book. And it was a hard thing to do because the introduction was meant to introduce Havel more or less for the first time to, what we hoped would be a wider English-speaking audience. And so I had to say a lot about, he was in prison, had to say a lot about who he was, and so on. So it was a very hard thing to write. And I worked on it for a couple of months, actually. And one night, I was very tired, and it was late, and I was, going through this thing that I'd written. And I suddenly said to myself, there's something wrong with that sentence. I wonder what the original was. And then I kind of caught myself. And I said, wait a minute, what just happened here, right? And I suddenly, came to the conclusion at that point that writing was actually a form of translating. And what you were translating was your own thoughts into available and accessible English. Shortly after that, I came across a great line by E.B. White, who was writing a letter to a very anxious young woman who'd written him to ask him something about the writing life. And he said, and I'm quoting it very, not exactly, but I'm paraphrasing it. He said, and I thought that was right, but the thing is that you can't think that way when you're translating somebody else. And so the business of translating someone else, you really have to put your ego on the shelf and just do your best to make sure that you have said what he or she has said in the original in your own language.
Yeah. I would add that I think, you know, one of the things you learn from translation is that what's important about about art isn't necessarily what a lot of people think. You know, the story of the writer's relationship with the father, and all those things. Those all go into making literature, but there's so many other things that go into making literature, and those things are still there in translation. They're not. It's not your biography as much as it is your skills, the way you use language, the ability you have to get into a character. And create a voice for the characters just like a writer does. So there's a lot of skills that go into writing that are separate from the actual story of the writer or necessarily even the experiences of the writer, though your experiences, if you haven't had an experience or something, there may be things that you don't really understand. But so it just shed light on what it means to be an artist, I think, separating in a way that you know, in literature, you don't. I mean, it's true, we accept that of an actor, but we don't really accept that. That's also true of a translator.
I don't know how to answer the question, so I'll pass.
I was a teenager when Vanchura's Marketa Lazarova was published. It made a very great impression at the time. I wonder whether it was ever translated.
I applied in December for a grant from the National Endowment of the Arts to translate that book.
Wow.
I will find out in September or October if I got the grant, and if I got the grant, I will translate it.
I think there was an excerpt from that was once in an anthology. It's in the. Do you have the? There's a wonderful. I don't know if it's been updated, but there's a wonderful Library of Congress bibliography of Czech literature and translation. But I'll send it to you.
It hasn't been done yet. There are two other books of Vanchura's in English, though, and one of them just came out recently. It was called. It's one of his funnier ones.
Yeah, I think the title of it was Summer of Caprice.
Translated into English and published in Prague, and I think it's good.
You remember how the first sentence was translated? No, I don't mean.
No, I don't remember how the first sentence.
He's about what you could never hood neck.
Yeah. I don't remember how he translated it yet.
So I have a question sort of in the same vein, asking about a work, if it's been translated. I've brought what may be my favorite book, which is called Pražský chodec. I say that it might be my favorite book because I can't read it. I can't read Czech, but I know this is a wonderful book, and I'm wondering if anyone has translated it. I can't find.
I have the sense that Nezval.
This one.
I have the sense that someone did.
I think
Really?
it's the Austrian guy in Calcutta, Zucker.
I thought I saw it in a Prague bookstore in English. I could be wrong.
Publishing house Vitalis.
Yes, talk to me, because I'm getting nowhere.
The man in the front row who's had his hand up the whole time.
We can't hear you. Microphone. Use the microphone.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the show.
Okay, this is first quarter. We met at the Kusi about, I would say, 5 years ago, and I was amazed by this translation of Kundera. And then I met Kundera in Prague, and I told him about the Kusi influence of his. He said, I don't speak English. He's probably better in English than I. Peter's Kusi translation of Kundera into English is better than Kundera in Czech. This is, this paradoxical. Because it happens sometimes. I wrote several books for Czechs, and so when English is show you is about Jiřího students who live here, and I was staying with them forever. I wrote it in English because my sister is a painter. When I am painting, my brain gets tired in a couple of hours, so I was trying to find out what to do to generate the function. So what I did, I started to write books, which is different portion of the brain. And you read for 1 hour or 2, and you are again able to come back to painting, and again back, you know. This was written in English, and I was asked by Czech publishers, Knižní klub and Mladá fronta, to translate it into Czech, and then they will publish it, so I translated it to Czech, and I realized what hard work is that, to translate from English into Czech. You know, so they published it finally, they edited, and they told me what was wrong, how they would like to have it. I said, no, I will not publish it. Said, no, we will publish it. So we did. The same happened with my other book over there. It was very easy to write, because it was extreme sex. And it was about sex in New York City. And I was asked by my newspaper or magazine, Mladý svět or something like that. And I wrote a number of articles for them about sex in New York.
Do you know Jan Domabel?
But I wrote it here in Czech, and I had to translate it. In English, I had to translate it into Czech when I went to Prague to submit it. The same happened. Now I tell you, because you are all translators. Dilemma, which I will read now. So, I was teaching in Fukushima in Japan.
Question.
What is the question?
What is the question?
Question.
They will have to answer it now. How would you translate this book? This is a book which is 88 Buddhist temples over there where you go and they will write your opinion about you. And this is not literary. It is an image. So I took this book, I got it as a present from I guess over there. How would you approach translation of things which is not verbal?
Like a spiritual thing.
I don't know why I got that question.
Okay, this will be a last question, and then we invite you all to a nice refreshment, wine and cheeses, etc. Maybe you have found also in your notes a little test how to translate the Oříšek. So if you maybe we'll do it later at the wine, and you can come to me and tell me your favorite one. And here's one last question.
I just had a question that seems natural from the kinds of questions that were just asked before, which is there a book of Czech literature, a Czech literary work from any time in history that has not yet been translated, that needs to be translated?
I already answered.
Well, I mean, we have the which way needs a better translation. For the others, is there something that you would want to have translated that maybe you don't want to do yourself, but you think would be important to have translated?
Well, you know, I'm kind of fond of
It's a pub game.
Pavel Eisner's.
I was going to say Krami first. That's what I was going to say. That's my choice.
But think about it. It's all about the Czech
I
language.
know.
So-
You would read it.
So this is like setting yourself an impossible task, right? But it's such a well-written book. It's such an amazing compendium of all things Czech, and I'm not just talking about language.
Absolutely.
That it really deserves as a model for writing about culture. It's an amazing thing. But I don't know how to go about it.
Oh, yeah, I don't. Abstain.